Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Sports works. Live events work. It's glue. It's sticky. It's traction. It's high engagement. It's rooting interest. It's rivalries. It's young. It's sports betting as part of the ecosystem, so they're multitasking. Like, it's a winner. That's where you want to be.
So, Alex, back in September, we talked with Mark Shapiro, and it was a massive day. I have to say, it was funny, too, because he came in hot. He came in buzzing. And, understandably, he had been at the New York Stock Exchange that day, ringing the bell for TKO, a brand new company. So WWE and UFC coming together. These are two of the biggest brands in sports and entertainment. And I think that's a notable element here, because not only is he the president of TKO, he's the president of Endeavor. When you think about the organizations and the people and the partnerships that have had a profound impact on sports, entertainment, culture, media, and the money that is all around it, no one's bigger than Endeavor, I don't think. This, in a lifetime of deals, this could have been one of his biggest.
Maybe the biggest. And as far as impact, I mean, think about this. It's like putting the NBA and NFL together and calling it, TKO or whatever. It was a massive day and something that a lot of people didn't think could be done. The art of the impossible, they did.
So one of the best things, Alex, about catching Mark on this day was this was the first time he could really talk about all the nuances and all the inside politics of this deal. And the characters are unbelievable. Ari Emanuel, of course, the CEO and founder of Endeavor, Mark's partner. He talks about how he first met Ari. That's a great story. But he also talks about how these, and you alluded to this, seemingly never coming together people came together. Vince McMahon, Dana White, combining their companies into this entertainment sports behemoth.
Yeah, Jason, when you think about the personalities that you just mentioned, it just tells you a little bit of Mark Shapiro's superpowers, which is getting a lot of healthy egos into a room that have strong views, and somehow he got them all to play with the same jersey.
And also Mark Shapiro himself. I mean, this is a guy who, has his fingerprints all over what we know as modern sports media when it comes to ESPN. He headed programming there. And then he has profound influence on the media at a time when, media is upside down. It's never been more disrupted, probably since the invention of the television. When you think about streamers, you think about the broadcast networks, and you think about sports and entertainment as part of that, he's got some key decisions to make. He's clearly one of the chief architects here.
I mean, what he's done in media landscape, he came on to ESPN as a young wonder child, right?
Yeah.
He discovered Stephen A. Smith.
Right.
I call him a 5-tool player in business. And what that means is he can do it all and then some. On this episode of The Deal, Mark Shapiro.
Since we talked with Mark Shapiro, the private equity firm Silver Lake revealed plans to take Endeavor private for $13 billion. Additionally, a former employee sued WWE and Vince McMahon, alleging abuse, sexual trafficking, sexual assault, and negligence. McMahon, who has since resigned from WWE and TKO, denied the allegations. In a statement, TKO said the matter predates its executive team's tenure at the company, that it takes the lawsuit's, quote, horrific allegations very seriously, end quote, and is addressing the matter internally. All right, Mark Shapiro, huge day. You're here with us. How are you feeling right now? What does it feel like to close this deal?
Blur. It's just a blur. I mean, it's, a long journey to get here. But in the space of, 2.5 years, we've launched 2 public companies, rang the bell twice at the New York Stock Exchange. Usually you don't do that even once in your life, let alone in this short span. So you'd like to take a little time to smell the roses and enjoy it, but it's been a hectic day.
All right, so take us back on this deal. I think we can agree the audacity of this deal, because I think it's fair to say, like, this was a marriage that, like, made sense, but the question was, could you pull it off? Take us back.
I think there's two seminal moments. A couple of years ago, we drove to Stanford, the old WWE offices. Nick Khan had just started. And Ari mostly did the talking. And we basically told Vince why we thought we should come together. Whatever that was going to be, that wasn't necessarily a separate public company at the time. Maybe it was just an acquisition of WWE, but everything was on the table. So Ari makes a lot of the pitch. I think he's excited about it. I'm not sure everything comes out as cleanly as he wants it to come out. And we leave there and Vince has zero interest. That was it.
How long was the meeting?
The meeting was about an hour, and it was 48 minutes of us talking and explaining why this marriage made sense. And that was it. It was over. Now, fast forward to somewhere in the last year, we go out to dinner at the Mark Hotel restaurant, at the hotel. Vince, Stephanie, Nick, we make the pitch again in a more casual social setting.
Is it a private room, Mark?
Private room.
Okay.
Expensive private room, by the way.
Good.
Worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Ari and I didn't eat much. We were doing all the talking.
Well, Ari never eats much, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that's a disaster, yep. But the energy's still there, so you're good. I thought we have a very good presentation, all off the cuff. I mean, it's planned what we're going to talk about, but we're shuffling papers or anything. But can we get to a deal? And, everybody's excited, and Stephanie asked some great questions. Nick asked some great questions. Vince says nothing. We leave the meeting. Now, all of a sudden, now a couple weeks later, maybe it's a month later, I got my dates wrong here somewhere. And now Rain's been hired, the merchant bank, to put it up for sale, which brings me to seminal moment number 2, which is our meeting at Rain when I know we're getting this.
Right.
So a lot of due diligence, a lot of back and forth, a lot of questions, a lot of papers, numbers, analysis, strategic analysis, etc. You name it. We go to Rain and we basically tell the Endeavor story about the Endeavor flywheel, what we did for UFC. Remember, we bought this, call it $4+ billion, but it was making 160, 170 million. Yeah. And now you're talking about a division doing $600-700 million. Right. I mean, 3x in the space of, how many years here?
You wrote the playbook, basically.
You got it. Right, now, again, you're back here. We're with Rain. We're going through the story. Media rights, what we can do in analytics, social content, sponsorship and global partnerships, product licensing with IMG, what we can do there. Expanding international, direct to consumer. I mean, I'm telling you, I walked out of that meeting, we're getting it.
Mark, was there a moment, something you or Ari said that Vince said,
Mostly events. Remember, IMG owns, produces, stages, licenses 800 events a year, from food to fashion to art to golf, tennis. I mean, all over the globe, there's something going on. And when we took him through how we monetize those events, no dissimilar, by the way, to a wrestling match or a weekend or WrestleMania, and how you turn on those different levers. This isn't just about media rights and sponsorship. I mean, that's negotiations, that's relationships. It's what you do on the other levels of monetization that really sets you apart as a unicorn.
What's Dana saying about this? And how much do you bring him into the tent? Because this is going to dramatically affect his life.
That's right. Dana's the greatest partner ever. I mean, he's just a killer.
Rock star.
He is. I mean, he just gets it done. I mean, I remember being at ESPN. I'll remind you, I wouldn't put the UFC on the air. I was one of those guys that was like, oh, too dangerous, too much this, too much blood on the mat. We're not ready for it. Plus, who's my boss? Mickey Mouse, right? There was no way ESPN was going to be comfortable with me putting on UFC. But I also had an issue with it. And now look at it. It's mainstream. It's a major, right? We're monetizing it everywhere. Champions are household names. We went to Dana saying, we think 1 + 1 = 5. Are you on board for this? And Dana said, listen, early on, there was no bigger guy in my face than Vince McMahon as I was trying to build this. Like, he was at every corner stopping me, obstacle, roadblock. I've been to WrestleMania, and he's been to my fights. And you know what? If you guys tell me this is going to be all that when we put them together, count me in. I trust you guys.
All right. Can we talk about Ari?
Absolutely.
All right.
Oh, one of my favorite subjects. Yes. Look, we're both from Chicago. He's a little older than me. but we really didn't know each other. He went to one of my rival high schools, New Trier, and I was in Glenview, Glenbrook South. And we were on a plane going from New York to LA before Ari flew private. You're in first class, it's 2-1-2 in first class. And I'm in the 1 and he's in the aisle of the 2. So he's next to me, but there's an aisle in between us. And I used to use those cross-country trips to work on what's called the President's Reports. Michael Eisner and Bob Iger would have every area of the company every month give them a President's Report, which is like basically your top 10 priorities, your top 10 bullets, which is hard for all of ESPN and ABC Sports. But I used it as a real communications tool for the overall company. You want to know what's going on at the company? You want to know the focus? You want to know the priorities? Read the President's Report. And so that's what I would do. And I'd spend those whole 5.5 hours. And I type like this. I'm fast, by the way. Very fast. So it doesn't matter. And I don't make a lot of mistakes. Still going like that. I peck. The entire time, it's like 5 hours. It's dark now. And somewhere like 45 minutes or an hour from landing, Ari asks the guy sitting next to me. He gets up and I see him. Now, remember, it's very dark, but he's on the other side of the aisle. He goes around and he whispers in the guy's ear. But I hear and he says, like, can you get up, move over there?
Oh, my God.
Okay. And the guy says, excuse me? And all of a sudden he backs up all Ari Goldish and says, what don't you understand? Get the fuck up, get over and move into my seat so I can sit there. Okay? First of all, be arrested these days, right?
Yeah.
But also the guy actually does it. Instead of saying like flight attendant ringing your call button, the guy gets up, Ari sits down, crosses his leg, turns to me and goes, what the fuck are you doing? And that's how we met.
Wow.
That's how we met. And that's a fast friendship. Oh, we're both from Chicago. We know a lot of the same people. They have the same likes. Cubs, Bears, sports.
I was going to say, you're both Cubs fans.
Storytelling, right? Similar personalities. And so we got off to a fast start.
Mark, going back a little bit to TKO, you have a company, 2 companies now inside of TKO. They're both juggernauts on their own. One of the things that's really interesting about when you combine UFC and WWE, by the way, I was a massive WWE fan with, going back to the Hulk Hogan days and all Macho Camacho on Randy Man, all that. My question to you is, over 1 billion fans, right, combined, I actually think you guys in the early days of how do you serve that consumer 24/7, 365, there's so much upside.
That's right. So we know we're still building a lot here domestically, but yet there's a lot of international growth for the WWE and using IMG and the Endeavor platform as the underpinning to get it out there, to make deals that get you into new territories all the time in good programming windows on the platforms that matter. Absolutely key to that growth.
Could you ever see integrating both into one mega event?
One event?
I still remember WrestleMania, which is,
that's right.
When Hulk Hogan
took right.
the Giant. And
I do. I see it potentially as a one event, potentially. Yeah. Although they're 2 different audiences. WWE is middle America. It's the shows coming to town, a lot of kids, and it's a slice of Americana. The UFC has an international flavor, right? It's college age and up. It's a big betting sport also. It's gender neutral because we have a lot of female champions. Ronda Rousey is one of the biggest stars ever to come out of the UFC. And ultimately, Brazil, South America, I mean, it's a monster. Canada, Australia. I mean, these are good places to be. So I think that there's an opportunity to bring them out together. There's an opportunity to event. And maybe there's an opportunity to launch a channel with them together. Remember, the WWE has its own network, which Peacock now licenses for $250 million a year.
The Yankees model. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
We at the UFC have done our own proprietary. So we've got a strong sub base that we sell direct to consumer. That could flip-flop. That could merge. I think it's all up in the air right now. At the same time, not all the answers are here. We're going to have to wait till some things play out here. Yeah. And fortunately, we have time because the WWE deals are not up until October.
Coming up, we discuss how Mark rose from a production assistant to become a key executive who brought ESPN into an entirely new era. Plus media rights and how sports and entertainment have radically changed over the past decade. So let's talk media because, a little something about that. That's where you started your career, literally as a production assistant, if we have that right. Like, we don't need to go all the way back. Let's actually start here. You said it very well. The media space is upside down, disrupted, all sorts of a mess. How do you describe it right now? And how do you not just survive, but thrive in a world that looks like this?
I think when Charter, first of all, yes, I've been in the media space for a long time. Let's remember, I was in the chair when Chrissy Everett turned the table on Jim Rome.
Wow.
I was producing that show.
No way.
Just for the record. So I'm dating myself back to 93, but that was my literally first gig in the producer chair.
Right.
Wow.
And so I was there for the beginning of ESPN2 when they didn't even know it was going to work, let alone how many channels there are now, which of course led to this big fight with Charter. I think when Iger talked about the new deal with Charter, he hit it on the head, which is, first of all, we want to be there for the sports fan. That's what matters most. The consumer, options, choices. But you have to toggle it right now. You still have, everyone loves to beat up linear. I get it. The cord's being cut, et cetera, et cetera. Last time I checked, it's still in 65 million homes. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of eyeballs. That's a lot of traction. Viewership's going up. You saw the numbers on the ratings on the NFL and college football for week one of the 23-24 season. I mean, through the roof. Sports works. Live events work. It's glue. It's sticky. It's traction. It's high engagement. It's rooting interest. It's rivalries. It's young. It's sports betting as part of the ecosystem. So they're multitasking. It's a winner. That's where you want to be. And right now, no matter where you are, Stranger Things or sports, you have to have enough content to fill the linear pipes while they're still there, while you can still mine them and monetize them. But at the same time, have enough premium content, and it must be premium, in order to get the pickup on streaming that most of these companies are looking for. And that's why UFC's been so strong for ESPN Plus. And I don't say that in a arrogant way. I love ESPN Plus. I love their library. I love a lot of the soccer and some of the other properties they play, but they sold it to us as you're going to be the anchor tenant. If you're willing to put the UFC, keep in mind, they were in less than 10 million homes. Yeah. We were getting more out of being pay-per-view with DirecTV than going through there. But if you're willing to make that sacrifice, we will market you and cover you so strong that you'll grow, and then as we grow, it's a win-win. And that's exactly what's happened. But you have to be willing to put your premium content, not like NHL regular season. Do you think a lot of people are tuning in to see the Columbus, whatever, NHL team play a regular season game on ESPN Plus? No, maybe in Columbus, maybe. It's playoffs they are, but regular season's different. There's just a lot of volume and tonnage. That's not a slam on the NHL. There's no urgency. If you take your premium and you put it there, the audience will follow. And we were willing to do that. But let me tell you, it was a gamble. And when we made that deal, keep going back to that word, right? Sponsors were not happy. Where are the ratings? Well, ESPN Plus they're not doing ratings. Well, we can't pay you what we committed to because we don't even know who's seeing your product. We signed up to be a sponsor when you were on Fox. Fox broadcast, and now you're buried on ESPN Plus, where you got to pay a ransom to have a subscription. We want a rebate, and we had to manage all those sponsors.
Wow. And so, as someone who's going to have to, going back to a deal, negotiate for media rights over the next few years, and now in even larger fashion, how do you approach that deal making in an environment that is so uncertain? You don't know what buyers are going to be. ESPN is, I think it's fair to say, diminished at this point. Who knows what its future is?
Still the best brand in sports, though.
Right. So what do you do? Like, how do you approach that? How do you sort of marshal the forces inside your shop to take on a landscape that is dramatically different?
Well, let's start with the fact that the street, all they care about is the price.
Yeah.
So you're balancing that as a public company. You're balancing that with what's best for your brand, what's best for your product, what's your neighborhood look like, what other properties are around you, are on your channel, your platform, what's the long-term commitment from the company, right? For how many months were we hearing, ESPN's going to be sold off, ESPN's going to be spun off under Bob Chapek, maybe Iger will do it, maybe he won't do it. So you have to think about all of that, and then how it changes. But obviously, if you're the NBA or the UFC, you want the best partner, you want the best marketing partner, but you're looking to monetize your rights. And we're no different.
So, Mark, I want to talk a little bit about you and your career. Sometimes we have a lot of young listeners, entrepreneurs, viewers as well. I didn't go to college. You went to University of Iowa, right? You have a gazillion Ivy Leaguers that work for you. But you started, and I think our viewers would really like to hear this. You started as a production assistant at ESPN. In a few years, you're running the whole content. How do you do that? Why do you do that? What advice can you give to our young listeners?
Wow. Look, obviously there's some luck involved there, and I'm not saying that to be humble. You can't script that. Fortunately, I had mentors, executives that saw something in me, that had an eye on me, that said, this is a guy we want to bring along. And when I delivered, they rewarded me. That's rare. And if you're not at a company where people where the executives, the leaders, the managers are investing in their people like that, succession, planning for the future, trying to identify the future stars of tomorrow, investing in them, and then bringing them up the ranks, nurturing them, you should get out of there. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So I had some success with the Sports Century project, which was the precursor to 30 for 30. It won an Emmy. It won a Peabody, our first Peabody ever at the company. It's so interesting. So there's an executive meeting that takes place behind the scenes. Sports Century is coming to an end. $25 million profit winner for ESPN.
Wow.
End of the century, big 100 hours chronicling the best of the best in sports, stories, journalism, highlights, games. I oversaw the whole thing at 26 years old. And they made money, and it's a critical winner. Now, what do we do with this guy? We have a young star. I can say this now, right?
Yeah.
And they have a meeting, and one guy who's very high up, says he's going to be one of the best game producers ever. Let's put him on games. His personality, I've seen him in a truck, live. That's where he should be. And another executive says, what are you talking about? Like, here's what he just did. He sold this whole project. He brought in General Motors. He was the storyteller. He drove the narrative. It was profitable and it was critically acclaimed. We got to grow the Classic Sports Network, which is now called ESPN Classic. Let's put him in charge of the network. President of ESPN says, there is no president of networks. I'm the president of all of it. We don't have an individual president. I don't even know what that means. So the head of advertising, the head of affiliate sales are reporting to him. And they're like, and the guy who suggested it says, no, they're not. They stay reporting to affiliate and ads us. And we just tell them to figure it out. We'll work across the aisle, make it work. Let's just go for that. And the guy says, I'm telling you, he could produce Monday Night Football for us one day if we ever get that. And the guy turns to him. I got this whole story from George Bodenheimer and Steve Bornstein, who were running ESPN. And he goes, you're going to stick this kid in Boise, Idaho doing the C game when he could be running a network? And we could be building him as a future executive, because as a game producer, you're not starting on an A level. You're going to go to Boise. I'm going back to Iowa City here. Minor leagues. Exactly. Okay. So George and Steve listened to the old man that wanted me, and they put me in charge of Classic Sports Network. We were in 24 million homes. By hook or by crook, I worked with the different groups and the different teams without trying to be threatening. I learned, I fell on my face. I had to submerge my ego, you name it. I mean, I didn't have they weren't direct reports. I was across the aisle, but we sold the story. And quickly we were in 70 million homes. And now it's a success. And that set me up for the rest of the planet, ESPN.
And so what happens from there? What does that set you up to do?
Yeah. ESPN was really in a challenge time vis-a-vis ratings. Now, keep in mind, and you've seen this week with Charter, ESPN's getting anywhere from $8 to $10 a sub on your cable bill.
Wow.
That's how much is thrown up. ESPN makes their whole business. Yes, there's the ad stream, but their whole business is the affiliate revenue stream. That's the big money. You got to keep that going. And there were a lot of cries at that time from the MSOs. We can't do this anymore. ESPN has to go a la carte. How funny is that? Because that's what streaming is. It's a la carte. They have to go a la carte, and they were trying to get Washington to dictate it. And Disney spent a lot of money on lobbyists and to help them fight that off, because ESPN and Disney were scared. If we go a la carte, we're not going to have 80 to 100 million homes. How many people are going to sign up? By the way, history repeating itself. Yeah. It's exactly what they have right now. How many people will sign up when ESPN actually goes direct to consumer? Right? It's $29.99 or $39.99.
And Mark, just for our viewers, just to catch them up, you have over 100 million subscribers.
That's right.
and about $850, right? That's $850 million per month. The ultimate cash cow.
Right. That's right. At that time, they were about 93 million. I mean, and maybe they were at $6 then, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
it's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's the train that drives. You think you're getting ESPN2 for 50 cents a sub? You're not without ESPN.
Right.
You think you're getting ABC. You think you're getting ABC Family, which is now Freeform, Disney Junior. It's all on the backs of ESPN. So it drives the truck and the engine for everybody. That's the business model. It's absolutely brilliant. And by the way, they're so good they can do that. You can't afford not to have ESPN. They don't want to go a la carte, but the ratings are in the tank. They had lost NASCAR and their ratings were going down. So the president says, we got to do something bold. We got to make a change here. We need original thinking. We need original programming. We need new leadership. And they turn to me to say, we want to bring you in to run all the programming.
And how old are you at this point?
I was 31.
Wow.
And I remember they taking me out for a walk in Central Park, kind of like the father-son. Yeah. Right? Father, his arm around me, got it out, because basically they were going to pay me nothing. Okay. And I had no leverage, of course. Right. And it was be like, dude, this is a gift. Like, no one does this. And they put me in charge of programming. Wow. The first things I wanted to do was launch a show called Pardon the Interruption.
Wow.
Which ended up being huge for us. And I wanted the NBA in Wimbledon. Wimbledon, because it's just summer programming. We needed it to lift up. It's prestige, too. It's Tiffany product. Mm-hmm. And the NBA, because it's the NBA. And when we got those, our fortunes changed. We went on an 8-quarter run of increased ratings quarter over quarter, year over year. No one could argue with the strategy. Mm-hmm. It was, how much can you bring it in for? We'll see. I was just with Adam Silver yesterday. Ari and I were having lunch with him. And Ari and I went to dinner last night to celebrate TKO at Rayo's.
Oh, wow.
And I said to Adam, guess where we're going for dinner? That's where I took him and David Stern to sell them on the NBA coming to ESPN. I'll never forget that. I'm sitting, we don't have a package for you. We're on Turner and NBC. Split the Turner package. Split the Turner package. Whatever scraps you got for us, we'll take it. Or if you want to move the finals from NBC to ABC, we'll do that. That's where that whole thing got hatched. And so when you brought that back to the bean counters, well, the NBA, all that tonnage, high quality tonnage, right? Kobe, Shaq, big players, big personalities, and what that would mean for SportsCenter and other properties we're trying to get. And that was the beginning of a new run, and it silenced the cable operators. It wasn't anymore, hey, this is BS, ESPN's charging too much. We're a must-have.
Yeah. So, Mark, there's some critical decisions that get made at ESPN around that time during your tenure. Let's talk football. Sunday night football, Monday night football. We feel like we know it now.
Right.
It is not what it always was.
Yeah.
Take us back.
It's funny, obviously Monday Night Football was even bigger than it is today, right? The Howard Cosell days, come on. And for years and years and years, it was under there, and then it was handed off to Al Michaels. And
those jackets, remember?
Yeah, the yellow jackets in the old days with Gifford and Cosell and Andy Don Meredith. And then Al came on, and he had different partners, and that led up to Madden. It was a sad day when ABC, that's an institution, ABC Monday Night Football. The song, the music, institution, halftime highlights with Cosell. It was a sad day for the company when they lost Monday night, even though it went to ESPN. But this is the art of deal making, right? Sometimes it is just luck. You can be as strategic as all you want. You can data, analytics, informed relationships, and sometimes timing, optics, it just doesn't fall for you. Here's the situation. Steve Bornstein, he comes to us and says, we want to negotiate a renewal right now for Sunday and Monday night. I talked to Iger and George Bodenheimer, and we don't need to. Our window's not up. We're not doing that now. I go back to Steve. Mark, you should do this now. If you don't do this now, you will be the last one in, and you won't have the control. You won't be able to dictate where this goes. You come in first, you got first mover advantage. You want to hold us to our window, we'll end up negotiating with the other guys first, and you take your chances. So we kind of have it. We don't open it up, but let's at least talk about what it would be. And we really want to have continuous Sunday night and continuous Monday night. And at one point, Bornstein throws out a number, which is 1.4 for the two, 1.4 billion to keep them, which is a big increase for ABC and ESPN. And Iger says, I can't do that. Now, Iger's in line to get Eisner's job. Disney is hurting right now. Remember, there's a whole vote to get Eisner on. Shareholders are revolting. You know, Eisner, who was the fair-haired prince for so long, could do nothing wrong. Disney's in trouble. Iger potentially is going to succeed him, but they're going to look outside. How much is Iger to blame for what's going wrong with Eisner? So he's got a lot of optics and politics at play. And I don't think it's in his best interest to go to the board and say, I want to open early. Here's the kind of increase, which is unprecedented.
Right.
Now it looks like peanuts, right?
Right.
And so he says no. To which I was like, we may not get another swing. This is not a bad deal for the combo. Can't do it. And we turn it down. Well, what happens? They go renew their deal with Fox, and we end up losing Monday Night Football. Yes, it moved to ESPN, and that was like our saving grace. At least we got it for ESPN, which is the cash cow, but we lost it for ABC, and we end up paying $1.1 billion just for Monday night. So for a few hundred more million, a year earlier, we would have had both, and we would have been able to dictate the path, the nights, the network, whatever. Instead, we're left with one on Monday night for $1.1 billion, which is ridiculous. And remember, it would have been 1.4 for the two of them. Yeah. Right? Okay. And with no schedule, anything. I mean, they give us the worst schedule because we were cable.
Right.
By the way, Bob went on to be one of the best deal makers of our time in business. Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, Lucas, the list goes on, right? It's extraordinary what he's built at Disney. But for different factors at that time, he couldn't endorse that deal.
And Mark, you're so young at this age. What makes you think that $1.4 billion is a good deal or a fair deal for the whole Disney family?
I'm living and breathing sports media rights every day in my job. He's not, to be fair. Doesn't matter how much older he is or wise or aged. I'm in it. So it's a checkerboard game, right? Wow. This is chess. I know this is going to happen. Whether he couldn't move it or he didn't want to back me or he didn't believe in the now, whatever it was, it's ultimately a tough play, and you kind of live and die by that. And that was the beginning of the end of ABC Sports, as you remember the wide world of sports and ABC.
So, Mark, you mentioned Bob Iger. Jason and I are both big fans of Iger. Icon, obviously.
Absolutely.
Can you share with us maybe one or two lessons that you learned? Because you had a front row seat to his management.
Yes.
What an opportunity.
Yes. And there were some other turns there that could have happened. And I'll explain that. Here's just, as I saw Iger. First of all, central casting, guys. We all know, even today. He's just like invented to be Mr. CEO. Looks the part, charismatic, very convincing, very persuasive, very charming, very bright, surrounds himself with good people, takes chances, sports, entertainment, personalities, relationships. Honestly, he's the model CEO, right? And he came up through sports, similar to me. He came up through the ABC sports ranks, and he moved around in TV and film, and he has the package. And I remember telling him I wanted to do scripted programming at ESPN. Like, what do you mean? We do live events and we do studio shows, news and information. We want to go original programming, game shows, docs, films, scripted. What do you mean scripted? Like, ultimately, that was Playmakers, right? That was the series. He backed that play. And not only did he back it, he looked at every script. We're talking about the COO of Disney. Wow. I turned in every script to him, and he gave script notes for every episode. It was a massive hit, by the way. Playmakers was the third highest rated show on ESPN after Sunday Night Football and Saturday Night College Football. It was a monster. It was all anyone ever talked about. It won the AFI award. It was incredible. And Bob was totally hands-on, his fingerprints all over. So there was no job too small. So I tell you, when everybody talks about, you're too hands-on or too granular or too in the weeds, who's to say that?
Right.
Who says that? Bob Iger gets up at 3 a.m. practically. He's working out by 4. He's in the office by 5. Maybe I got it wrong by an hour. But trust me, he's on and I'm close. Yeah. And anytime I would send him an email or a call, it's an instant. Are you just sitting by your desk waiting? Like, that's who he is. He's on it. He leads by example. He inspires people. You want to get behind him. And that's the takeaway. And that's one thing about leadership and doing deals and running companies. Like, you can be a great boss, but do people really want to work for you? Are they inspired? There's a difference. Are they inspired by you? Yeah, they might listen to you. Maybe it's out of fear. Maybe they perform, but will they really follow you into battle? That loyalty, do they have your back? Do they believe in you? And having that gift to inspire people, that's not something you can teach in Harvard Business School.
Very rare.
So when you think about media rights across, especially the major sports, and you have talked about the NBA, the NFL, MLB, like, how do you parse out the value of rights going forward? Because these are sports that are on different trajectories at this point.
Look, it is about, especially today with streaming. Let's just take ESPN for example, right? I'm not picking on them, but they're the best. When they go direct to consumer, when they flip the switch, they're going to be basically taking the linear feed of ESPN as you know it, which will still exist because it'll probably keep going, but they're going to put it on streaming. So now you can stream the channel, not ESPN Plus, which is SVOD, the actual channel. And maybe they'll have stuff there that isn't on the linear feed. We'll see, or tiers or whatever it might be. In order to make that work, the money they're going to be foregoing from losing subs and ad revenue on the linear, they're going to have to charge a hefty price. That's what this is all about. That's the models that are running. What do we have to charge for ESPN as a standalone channel on streaming? And there's a lot of articles out there, and there's a lot of rumor and gossip and speculation. Is it $29.99? Is it $39.99? How many people will actually pay $39.99 for a month? Is it 10 million, 20 million, 30 million? In order to make, to balance it out. The only way you're going to get there, whatever the price is premium content. The only way. You have to be so disciplined that, we're not going to carry that secondary sport. We're not going to carry that tertiary sport. We're not going to carry that studio show that may be good, but it doesn't deliver. We have to stick with the tried and true. What's going to bring people to the table? And NBA is one of them. If I'm going to get my games and my playoffs on that channel, if I'm going to get NHL playoffs on that channel, if I'm going to get NFL on that channel, if I'm going to get UFC, or dare I say WWE, First Take, Pardon the Interruption. Take the stuff that really matters, and invest in that, and you have to just cut the rest. And that's hard to do, and that affects a lot of lives and livelihoods, but that's the only way you're going to get that number. So premium content wins. And one of the reasons we feel so strong about UFC and WWE, and I'm not saying this to be self-serving, this works for a lot of other sports, is because we're the full calendar. So if you can get premium content that goes 8 months, 10 months, let alone us, 12 months a year, scheduling flexibility, nights, hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, library programming, that makes you invaluable.
This has been incredible. We could talk to you for 3 hours, 4 hours.
Forever.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed it.
I'm not sure where it starts or stops because I just enjoy talking to you guys, and you're titans of business yourself, so I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mark. That was awesome.
The Deal is a production from Bloomberg Podcasts and Bloomberg Originals. The Deal is hosted by Alex Rodriguez and Jason Kelly. Our producers are Victor Ives and Lizzie Phillip. Our story editor is Siddhartha Mahanta. Our assistant producers are Stacey Wong and Anna Mazarakis. Blake Maples is our sound engineer. Rubab Shakir is our creative director. Art direction is from Jacqueline Kessler. Original music by Blake Maples. Casting by Dave Warren. Our managing editor is David Ravella. Our executive producers are Sage Bauman, Jason Kelly, Adam Comiskey, Kelly LaFerriere, Ashley Honig, Trey Shallowhorn, Kyle Kramer, and Andrew Barden. Additional support from Rachel Scarmazino, Elena Los Angeles, Vanessa Perdomo, Tom Connors, and Anna Mazarakis. Billy Vorman is our director of photography. Our camera operators are Ryan Cavatero and Jesse Rindner. Our gaffer is Joe Albino, and our grip is Balt Spielman. Katia Vinoy is our video editor. You can also watch The Deal on Bloomberg Originals, YouTube, and Bloomberg Television. Subscribe to The Deal wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.